hey, you don't have to live the same in every season. Like, it's not the same. It's actually a different way of living in each season. Springtime is the season of doing new things.
Nice.
Hi, it's Marie Hopkinson. Welcome back to the Chinese Medicine Podcast. Today we're going to be talking about springtime and what are the things you can do to get your body ready for spring and what's spring great for. So let's start the video now. So if you're new to the channel, welcome. My name's Marie Hopkinson. I'm a herbalist and an acupuncturist in Perth, Western Australia. And what I do is on this channel is make Chinese medicine easy for people to understand. Well, hopefully. So if you found it good, pop a comment in the comments below. I love to read your comments. I love to know if it's helping you. If you've got a question about Chinese medicine, I would love to answer that question as well. So you can check out the series that we have on Chinese medicine. Questions and answers, like people's questions about things about Chinese medicine. That's what I do. So without further ado, let's just get on to the topic. We're going to talk about springtime, and you can see that I'm wearing my puffer jacket here. It's still winter in Perth. Now it's just, there's about 5 days left of technical winter. And I want to talk about what you can do to prepare yourself for spring and how you know spring's kind of coming, when you can sense it in the air, and how to go about that. So you don't have to go by the exact day. You don't go, oh, well, in Australia it's September the 1st, right? And so you'll be the opposite if you're in the other side of the world. And this video is still appropriate for you, just might not be watching it right now. You might watch this next year in 2021. Hopefully life's better on the other side of 2020. I'm sure everybody knows what we're talking about there. Anyway, so springtime is the season of doing new things. That's one of the biggest things to think about with spring, right? So in Chinese medicine, one of the biggest differences, I was explaining this to my patient yesterday and it made me think about it again, that's what sort of prompted me to make this video, is it's one of the only systems of medicine, one of the few systems of medicine that thinks about life in a very different way in different seasons. So how we should treat our body and what we should do for our body and what the expectations we should have. And it's only through westernization of things that, and this need to be productive and this need to kind of do and produce and this kind of industrialization, I guess, of life, is that we have this same expectation through our body all the time. Like we should, if you're exercising, you should do the same exercise all through the seasons. If you're eating, you should do, like, that shouldn't make a difference. Like that shouldn't make, why should that change what we do? But in Chinese medicine, it's a massive difference. It makes a huge difference in the expectations that we have of our body. And in the Nei Jing, that's one of the oldest texts of Chinese medicine, one of the foundational texts. And you've probably heard of that, called the Yellow Emperor's book, or the Yellow Emperor's Internal Classic of Medicine, Classic of Internal Medicine, I should say. So that textbook is the foundation for the philosophy of Chinese medicine, right? So it's not a clinical manual as such. It does have some clinical stuff in there, but it's more a philosophy. Okay, these are the ideas, these are the foundations of what Chinese medicine practitioners think about. And it's based on the idea of like living in harmony and also in reverence of the environment and looking at the environment and saying, well, if we observe how the environment works, that's how the environment in our body should work, or it does work when it's in health and when it's in harmony. So in springtime, there's a few things that we want to consider. So one thing I mentioned before, spring is the season of doing new things, right? And what that means is, like, as a plant, right, it's kind of doing something new. It's growing, it's emerging. So you might notice, if you have a garden, that seeds kind of start getting produced around the time of the end of winter towards spring, because the seeds are there kind of ready to be planted, ready to be put in the soil. And what happens in spring, in the most thing you can notice or observe about spring, is you emerging from this dark coldness of winter into a more warmer climate. So what does that do in our body? Well, the yang of our body, the functional, the movement aspects of our body, that's the yang, as opposed to the yin, which is the density, the physicality of your body. Like this table that you can't see in this video is all yin. I've got this plant here, right? So this is yin, like the container that it's in. And the density of the plant, like the structure, is kind of a yin thing, but the growth of the plant is the yang. So if I don't water this plant and it goes all limp, it doesn't have much yang. It needs that. You can see that it's got yang by the fact that it's thriving, by the fact that it's growing. It looks healthy, that kind of stuff, right? So what I'm getting at is that yang of our body kind of goes into a dormant place in winter. It goes into a more internal place, right? not so much dormant, but just it's not on the surface, right? Your yang is more internal. And then in summertime, your yang is fully on the opposite of the winter, right? So it's coming out to the surface. So spring and autumn, or fall, if you're in the USA, in America, I've got a terrible American accent, sorry about that. But if you're in the Americas in the USA, then it's the fall, right? So these two seasons are transient seasons. They're opposite seasons. So what's happening in winter and summer are opposite, and then the kind of transition between those two is the springtime, and then the autumn or the fall time, right? And so what happens in spring is the yang of your body's going from the internal to the external, whereas in the fall or the autumn, it's going from the external moving more internally, right? So it's on the move, it's right moving. And we get this idea from the Nei Jing in chapter 2. It says, it talks about that chapter is about living in harmony with the seasons, right? So how do we live a harmonious life and a healthy life and avoid illness through that? And it says in the 3 months of spring, they denote effusion and spreading, right? So what I've said is like that movement, and in a minute I'm going to talk about the 5 elements and how we think about how that relates to these things as well, because the element of spring is wood, and it's exactly this kind of nature. It's kind of like spring is wood's time to shine, right? Spring is the wood months of your body. It says the myriad begins to flourish. Go to rest late at night and rise early. And so we're going to stop there and we'll come back to the rest of this bit. But so what that's talking about is, okay, your sleep should change in springtime. So in winter, you need the most amount of sleep. And in summer, you need the least amount of sleep. So what happens in the other seasons, like I said, they're transitional. So we start to transition from going to bed early and getting up late. So you're having a lot of sleep in winter, to this idea of now you can still go to bed early, but start to get up earlier. So we start to transition through these things. So in summertime, you want to go to bed early. You want to go to bed late and get up early. So you're getting up when the sun rises. So what I'm getting at in springtime is you basically just start getting up a little bit earlier when the sun's rising. So you'll notice that the sunrise is happening earlier. And so if you're a person that's living in harmony with the seasons, this is the ultimate life. Now, not all of us live in accordance to this, because we have things that detract us from this lifestyle. So we might have things like shift work. You might be, or you might have, a job or a business that you need to work late at night, or you need to work very, very early in the morning, and so you're used to this kind of lifestyle, and you may not be able to change that. But if you have the ability to do this, then this is the ultimate stuff. Unfortunately, I find working in Chinese medicine, I see patients that they have to kind of wait until they're really sick before they pay attention to this stuff, right? So it might take someone getting a terminal illness diagnosis before they massively turn around and change all their ways. Hopefully we're not at that point, the people watching this video, but if you are, there's never, you'll still get some benefit out of changing. There's never sort of like thinking, well, I've wasted, I've lived 20, 30 years like this, there's no point in changing now. There's lots of anecdotal evidence to look at people that have changed their lifestyle drastically into a more healthier lifestyle and how that's kind of helped them, and also scientific evidence that kind of looks at studies on people who've changed their diet and changed their habits and things like that. So there's never a bad time to kind of start this stuff, but there's always the best time is when you know about it. Now, I'm not the sort of person who does this exactly like this, like just my lifestyle doesn't fit into this. And I think also sometimes people's personality, it sort of fits certain aspects of things better than others. So I'm just giving you the ultimate life, I guess, the ultimate lifestyle in Chinese medicine. And I think what we need to do is, one, don't get stressed if you can't do it, but be working your way towards that as much as you can, right? And so you may not be, for me personally, I'm not an early riser. I'm not a person who loves getting up at the cock crow at the 5 a.m. I'm not an early riser. But I love that extra sleep of winter. I love that extra kind of, rejuvenation that you get from having that, and not feeling guilty about that. In Chinese medicine says, hey, have that sleep in winter. That's good. You should be doing that, right? So what happens in summertime is that the weather is a lot warmer, right? And so it might be really hard to go to bed. It might be hard to fall asleep later at night, right? Whereas in winter it's freezing cold often and you just want to rug up anyway, and so you may as well just go to bed earlier, and you know it's colder and it's harder to get up out of bed. So what you might notice as springtime starts coming is that it's just that little bit more warmer in the evenings, so you don't have to go to bed as early. It's just that you might be able to stay outside and enjoy the environment a little bit more. And that's what I was noticing the other day. I was thinking, I can smell spring is in the air because it was just that little bit warmer. I finished work about 7 o'clock at night, and normally it would be freezing. It'd be dark and cold. And it was just that little bit lighter. I think maybe it was 6 o'clock. It probably wasn't 7 p.m. It was just that little bit lighter. It was just that little bit warmer. It was like, this is quite pleasant. I could sit out on my veranda at home when I get home and not be like, oh, I'm so cold, I've got to go inside, and it's only 7 p.m. So as you start to notice that wherever you are in the world, now in different places, like Australia is a massive country. And so people who are on the other side of Australia right now, people in Sydney and Melbourne, certainly Tasmania, wouldn't experience this as much as we experience this. Perth, where I live, is a much warmer place in general. And so you might have your onset of spring a little bit later. It might not be like sort of right now. And so you can start to see that if you have a garden or you notice things, you can start to see like what happens in springtime is that the flowers start to bloom, right? And you'll definitely feel that the air gets warmer, the temperature's hotter in general, and that kind of thing. So the key thing is to start getting up a little bit earlier. And what should you be doing earlier? What should you be getting up and doing? Well, a little bit of exercise is good because in winter time it's more the dormant time, it's more the hibernation, right? And so you've not been exercising. If you've been following the rules of Chinese medicine or the philosophy of Chinese medicine, you wouldn't have bbeen out there sweating it out at the gym. But now this is a good time to start doing exercise. Now, if you're an overweight person or an unfit person and you're thinking, oh, I want to start my gym routine, but I'm not sure what to do. Okay, go and see your GP and have a checkup and all that sort of stuff to make sure that you don't go and, do something that, exercise-wise that your body isn't able to do. But the best way to get into exercise is to just start walking rather than doing something super duper strenuous, right? So this would be a good time to start that. So start walking now as that springtime starts to happen. Now, if you're watching this on the other side of the world right now, so I know lots of my viewers are in the USA and in the UK and things like that, it's the start of autumn for you, right? It's not the start of spring. And so what's happening for you is things are starting to cool down. Not very much, but just slowly you're starting to find things are cooling down. And so you possibly can enjoy the outdoors a little bit more than you can in summer when it's fully hot and you're like, So it's not as comfortable, it's not as uncomfortable like outside. And you are thinking about preparing yourself towards winter, right? Towards, hey, I'm not going to be exercising as much. You're sort of thinking about preparing yourself towards winter, right? And so you don't want to have to exercise because you're so overweight. So if you can lose the weight now or keep yourself healthier now, that's better sort of as a transitional thing so that you don't have to, exercise heaps and heaps in winter. So we're getting back to springtime, right? So spring is a season of doing new things, and that's because of this sprouting and this movement. And so what happens is as this yang starts to move outward towards, the surface of your body where it's going to be in summertime, if you go with that flow, if you've got new ideas or things you want to do or projects you've had on your mind, this is the time to do them. This is the best time. You'll get the best bang for buck. You'll get the best momentum because you're going with the momentum of the season. So you think of this kind of thing of like emergence and flourishing and going out. And even in the Nei Jing it says, you should go out. It says move through the courtyard with long strides, dishevel the hair and relax the physical appearance, right? So what's that mean is like women used to have the hair tied up really tight and you would be bundled up because of winter, right? So you'd have lots of layers of clothes on. These are back in the Han Dynasty. They didn't have heaters. They had, fires inside probably to keep warm, but they wouldn't have had central heating or anything like that. So people were at the mercy of the elements. And so to be able to withstand that, they would have had lots of layers. They would have had, sheep skins and animal skins or whatever to kind of keep warm and that kind of stuff. And everything would have been tight to try to keep the cold out, right? So it was very cold around that time, especially in talking about China here. And so now they're saying, right, now it's time to loosen your hair. Now it's time to let it loose, let it go. Let it go. The Frozen, let it go. Like spread out. And so you don't have to be all sort of rugged up and bundled up. You can start to spread out. You can start to move outwards. And you can think of that in a metaphorical sense as well, like start to take up the space that you want to take up in that zone of something new. So it might be like you want to write a book, you've got a new project. Like a lot of people around the world right now, because of the old virus, they've been stuck at home, and you might have had some ideas, things that have come to you, and you think, I'd really like to write a book, I'd really like to do a blog, I'd really like to start learning a musical instrument, or maybe you've already started kind of doing that stuff. Well, now is the time where you'll get this momentum kind of happening from doing that stuff, and you probably feel that it's easier to do because you're in the flow of life and you're kind of doing those things. If you started an exercise regime or you've started an eating program or something like that, it might have been harder in winter than it will be in spring. And certainly as you get towards summer, it's a lot easier to exercise because the weather's warmer and the yang of your body goes onto the outside. And so that means all the circulation is kind of already more pumping on the outside. And in Chinese medicine, there's this really strong idea about don't sweat to your detriment, right? So the idea that sweating can be of detriment to you. So yes, in Western medicine, we know that to be true as well. Like if you sweat too much, you're losing fluids and that can dehydrate. Again, with this this classical ideology of Chinese medicine, go back again. Again, with this classical philosophy of Chinese medicine, this idea of sweating is really prohibited in the winter time, right? You shouldn't be sweating in winter, and especially if you're already a blood deficient kind of person. And you only know that because you've been to a Chinese medicine practitioner and they might have told you you've got blood deficiency. But if you do, then you're not the sort of person that should sweat too much. And certainly in winter, it's more that time of consolidation, whereas in summer, it's this time of moving and spreading and growing. And so you'll find that the exercise it'll be easier for you because there's more yang in the periphery of your body, and you feel like your joints are less achy, your body moves and flexes heaps better. I find lots of my patients get aches and pains because they have stiffness and like tightness in their joints and in their body, and that often it's worse in winter because you're just not as warmed up as you are in summer because of the yang, right? So you've got to work extra hard to warm yourself up, to stretch. Like I've got some patients that I advise, rub deep heat into the base of your ankles, like if this is your ankle, sort of your Achilles tendon, that kind of area, like rub the deep heat into those areas to sort of moisturize and warm so that your body doesn't get overly strained as you go for a run in winter, let's say. But it's really not the right thing to do in a Chinese medicine philosophy, is to exercise a lot in winter. But as it gets towards summer, you can exercise much more. So in springtime, you want to be moving. Meals should start to get lighter. In winter, they tend to be more denser, heavier things. And as it gets to summer, you're actually eating less food. You can eat a little bit more raw food. In spring and in summer, you can have a lot more raw food if your body's healthy. Now, if you've got spleen qi deficiency or spleen yang deficiency or dampness, you probably still want to stay away from too much raw and just follow your Chinese medicine practitioner's advice, right? So I'm not trying to override their advice if they've told you something else. But in a general sense, we're talking about people who are just generally healthy, and because that's what Chinese medicine ultimately is for, keeping your body healthy, this kind of yang sheng, like nourishing life stuff, this keeping things healthy and maintaining health. So if your body's generally healthy, you can eat some of those raw fruits. Why? Because they grow naturally in the summertime. And again, your food should be seasonal. It should be locally available. What's grown locally is generally what's okay in that environment and for those people that live in that environment. So it's generally what's cheap, what's easy to grow. And so you'll notice that then the nature of those foods tends to be a little bit cooler. And so you can have a little bit more cooler foods, a bit more raw foods in summertime than you could have in wintertime. So your diet tends to be a lot lighter in summer, and again, because it's this transitional time, you're kind of just having lesser foods. If you're watching this from the other side of the world and you're heading towards winter, then it would be you would have heavier, more denser foods, starting to kind of introduce a bit of that stuff and a bit more meat into your diet as you get towards winter. So again, you can have a bit more plant-based in your diet and less meats as you get towards summer. So I hope this has been useful and helpful to you. We'll just finish off this little chapter. So it says, dishevel the hair and relax the physical appearance, thereby cause the mind to orientate itself on life. Give life and do not kill. give and do not take, reward and do not punish. So it's talking about emotions there a little bit as well. So talking about, there's lots of different interpretations to these lines. So I'm not trying to I'm not an expert on this. It's just my own ideas and interpretation. But if you think about wood relating to the season of springtime, which it does, the emotion that's associated with the qi of wood and the liver in Chinese medicine is anger and frustration and resentment, in a detrimental sense, right? Now, in a good sense, that can also be our drive and our purpose. And like, when you get a little bit angry about something and you think, yeah, I'm going to do something about that. And it's a good anger. It's like a righteous anger, right? You're like, someone does something that's unjust, and those people sort of, start a cause because they're going to make a change in the world, and that's a positive thing. That's different to someone who's resentful and like punishing, and it's sort of saying, well, you've wronged me, so I'm going to have to get my justice. And like, that's really detrimental to our liver, and it doesn't go with the flow. So what the Nei Jing is saying is like, well, the liver qi is wanting to move, it's wanting to get in the flow. And if you're having anger, that's kind of going against that. That's creating what in TCM they call liver qi stagnation, right? So it's not enough outlet for this flow, this movement to kind of do its thing. And so you need that movement, not just movement in the physicalities. We talked about exercise being important, but you need movement in terms of the movement of your mind. Like, where are your thoughts going? What are you harboring? What are you keeping? Are you letting things go? Are you able to be in the flow of things? And that's the liver qi for you, if you like. And then it says, this corresponds with the qi of spring and the way to nourish life. It's opposing it harms the liver, right? So it's saying, if you harbour these thoughts, if you harbour resentment, if you think, I've got to get my just desserts over this person that's harmed me, it's wronged me, we find that a lot with people scrolling and getting angry online, right? I see some people's commenting and I think, oh wow, you must be really an angry person. Like, I feel bad for you, like being like that. So be aware of that, what that does for you, and how that helps you in a physical sense, right? So that emotional stuff of being able to let things go, being able to be free of that. So another thing I want to talk about in this emotional, mental aspect of the wood element is your purpose, your creativity. We talked about doing new things, but being within your purpose and feeling like you're living your life purpose, life planning, and that is related to wood more through the gallbladder, but the liver and the gallbladder, this kind of the yin and yang of the wood element, are kind of working together to help us find our purpose in life and find where we belong in life. So I'm not saying just do new things willy-nilly, right? Like, oh, I want to do something new. But sometimes you do new things willy-nilly to explore what is my purpose, right? There's been lots of times in my life where I haven't known I enjoyed something until I started doing it. And likewise, I haven't known I hated something until I started doing it. I thought, I never want to do that again. Now, if you're a younger person watching this, if you're sort of in your 20s or younger than that, right? This is your time to explore. Now, that doesn't mean you can't explore when you're older, right? But this is definitely, you want to explore. You want to try lots of stuff. You want to get involved in volunteer projects. You want to get involved. You want to do lots of work experience. You want to do unpaid jobs so that you can get the experience of doing those things and see, is this what I really want to do in my life? Is there something about this that connects with me? Like maybe you do want to learn an instrument. Maybe you do want to join a band. Maybe you do want to be a painter or maybe you do want to get another degree or something like that, where you have a little project at home where you want to work on a car and you want to restore a car to, from back to its former glory or something like that. Some of these things, you don't know if they're going to be good for you until you start doing them. And then you come back, if you finish doing a task and you think, wow, that really energized me, I could keep doing this all day or all day and all night, and I just love doing it. Well, that's a really good sign that you're in your purpose, right? That you've connected. Might not be the whole thing, but there's something about that thing where you think, I love doing this. Now, for me, it was teaching and talking, right? Not just talking willy-nilly, but I really enjoy teaching, and I got lots of opportunities to do teaching Chinese medicine when I was younger. And I also took up a job teaching violin when I was really young, when I was putting myself through Chinese medicine school to get money as a little job. And my mum encouraged me to kind of do that, and I was thinking, I'm not really a great violin player, and you don't have to be a great violin player to teach kids violin, right? You have to have a lot of patience, and you have to be a good teacher. And I only taught students like in that first year of teaching. And there's tons of violin teachers that don't want to touch those students because it's arduous and it's annoying for them. But I really loved it. I really enjoyed it, and I got something out of it. And it wasn't that I wanted to be a violin teacher for my life. It was that I liked the idea of teaching. I liked the idea of being able to share something, see that person do it, and then them go, wow, that really turned on the bells of bing, 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 and I really enjoyed, and I learned something. And so that's a big part of my job. I really enjoy doing that. And then that made me pursue opportunities in teaching in Chinese medicine. It's one of the main reasons why I went and got another degree, so that I thought if I do want to do teaching later on, I could see that things were changing in our industry, that you're going to have more than just, your basic degree, which whatever, when I was learning Chinese medicine, all my teachers just had the standard degree. They didn't have a bachelor. They just had the bachelor degree. They didn't have a master's or any kind of PhD or anything. And I thought, if I want to pursue this more, I'm going to have to, do this. And so that what I'm saying is, it's really important when you're a younger person to have a lot of different experiences, and don't just throw away the idea, I don't want to do that for the rest of my life. Then if there was something in there, you don't discount how good that is to kind of show you your path and help you find it, because not everyone has this idea where they wake up and they go, bing, this is what I want to do with my life. And also the other thing is, this is really relates to the spring season, is that, look, things change. Our body changes, our expectations of life change. We get jaded, we have experiences in life, and we don't want to do things anymore because, we've done that, been there, done that kind of thing. And so you might be a person that's in middle-aged or older or something like that. And there's times where, you might, there's lots of people that change careers midlife, right? In their 30s, in their 40s, in their 50s, 60s, even people in their 70s might start up a new career or start up a new business or something like that, or a new way of earning money. Or lots of people find that they get more out of what they did in their retirement than they did in their day-to-day job, because they find that they really can find that passion and connect with what they enjoy. So I hope that these ideas are encouraging to you and helpful to you to kind of learn a little bit about how Chinese medicine thinks. One, hey, you don't have to live the same in every season. It's not the same. It's actually a different way of living in each season, and that's what's in harmony with the environment. And hopefully we can get rid of the old puffer jacket soon, because it's going to get a little bit warmer. And and that's the good thing about as winter kind of fades away and springtime comes in, then we're going to be seeing more warmness in the environment, and that'll help with getting movement to the areas of our body in the extremities, and that means you can go for walks and runs and exercise and things like that much more freely without, lots of people who suffer with arthritis or pains. Those things generally kind of fade away and they get less. So your sleep and your diet and just living your purpose and getting in touch with what you're passionate about is really, really helpful. And just that little piece of advice from the Nei Jing about let it go, be free, don't hold on to resentment and, things that you feel that, you probably do deserve. You probably do deserve justice. And maybe that justice will come when you let things go. And it's not saying let people walk all over you and let people just have their way about it, but just inside, not letting those things eat you up and letting those things kind of, cause resentment and cause more frustration and anger. And so I hope this video has been useful and helpful to you. It's a little bit longer than I first intended, but this is just help. This is going to be part of a series. I'll do one on every season to kind of help talk about what to do in Chinese medicine and the right thing to do for the seasons. If you're not a subscriber already, make sure you click that subscribe button below. Really appreciate people subscribing and commenting. We're nearly up to 2,000 subscribers. I'm super happy. This channel's been really growing. And it's been such a pleasure to share my knowledge with people. So if you have a question about Chinese medicine, please put it in the comments below. I would love to hear it and help answer it if I can. And have a great day. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Chinese Medicine Podcast. Did you know we're also on TikTok? And you can find shorter videos on Facebook and Instagram that you might like to share with your friends and family. You can also find our podcast on Apple, Spotify, and all places where you listen to audio podcasts. I look forward to seeing you again on the next video soon.
You don't want to stack on heaps of kilos with